Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 325 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by jaysfromthecouch.com. Hey, Blue Jays fans, welcome to another episode of Jays from the Couch radio podcast. We've got a great episode for you this week as our 2023 projections roll on. We've got Kevin Gausman, Whit Merrifield, Cavan, Biggio, and Kevin Kiermaier, as well as our MLB Minute segment and fake news. A whole lot coming at you here on episode 325. I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at DoyleJFTC. I want to take a second here and remind you of a couple of things. First of all, our sponsor, Jays from the Couch podcast, is brought to you by BetStamp. It is the greatest tool that you can find anywhere to increase your betting game. Take it to another level. You can line shop, look around for the best deals across all the books, find the right bet for you. As well, you can track winning bettors, see what they're doing, what works for them, and you can follow suit. It's easy peasy as well. You can keep track of all your bets across the books via a BetStamp. It truly is a great app for you to use if you're serious about betting or you just want to try it out. Download the BetStamp app on the App Store or Google Play. Use the code JFTC and you can start betting like a pro. As well, we have created a Facebook group for people who are serious about talking about their Blue Jays, who just want to talk Blue Jays, get together. No arguing, no fighting, no debating, just let's talk some Blue Jays. It's Blue Jays Talk for All. Look us up on Facebook and join today and join the great conversation there. It's a lot of fun talking and joking around with all kinds of Blue Jays fans. So head on over there and join today. Like I said, we've got a great episode for you. We're going to get to some projections. We've got our MLB Minute, which is actually kind of interesting. And we've, of course, got our fake news as well. So to help me tackle all of that, first of all, host of the On Feck Circle, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the Feckless Wonder himself. Good evening, Steve. How are you?
Good evening, Sean. Only one more spot left in the Jays from the Couch Fantasy Baseball League.
Hey.
So
what are we at, 18?
Well, we will be at 18. I mean, I'd hoped to be at 20 at this point, but some people that kept pestering me with emails saying, please send me the link, have still not joined. So at this point, it's down to 18. Since we no longer really have divisions or leagues anymore, since everybody's playing everybody else, we're going to do the same thing in the Jays from the Couch. Just have one league, top 8 teams make the playoffs. So you can go and send an email to fecklesswonder@jaysfromthecouch.com. You can go to the general email info@jaysfromthecouch.com. I also posted up on Blue Jays Talk for All. I also put it out there saying, hey, here's the link. If you want to join, it's first come, first serve. So you got to hurry up. It was a lot of fun last year. It's going to be even more fun this year.
It really was. Liam's my son's first fantasy baseball experience, and he's looking forward to our draft coming up very shortly. As well, joining us, host of Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Fresh, new tan in tow, Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Sean. Good evening, Steve.
How was it in Dunedin? You've got one sentence.
Hot, sunny, great vacation, nice weather, mostly good baseball to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good experience. Good for you. And you're right there in the action, no bad seats or anything like that. So It's a good time to go watch some baseball. All right, we're going to kick off episode 325 with our, you guessed it, the MLB Minute. And very simply, the MLB Minute, we each get 1 minute to discuss one topic from around Major League Baseball. Each week we bring a different topic, and this week's one is very interesting. But at the end of that 1 minute, you will hear a notification from my phone saying your 1 minute has elapsed, and therefore you should probably stop talking. However, I have no way to make you stop, so there you go. But we've got 1 minute, and this week's this week's topic, I had to double check to make sure it wasn't actually fake news or from the Onion or the Beaverton or whatever it is. I just had to make sure because Major League Baseball is partnering with Zoom, as in the Zoom conference meetings, the online meeting platform, to utilize their services for a video instant replay. So before, the umpires get on the headset and they're just listening to and talking to the New York office. We always assume it's in New York. I'm sure it is, but who knows if it actually is? It could be some guy in his basement with a black backdrop and head. Oh, wait a minute. Anyway, but But before it was just talking, right? And then they make the people in the office, they make the call, and then that's that. The umpire comes back, takes off the headset, and does the safer out or whatever have you. They incorporated some the vocal aspect, but apparently that wasn't enough. So now they're going full video with a partnership with Zoom. So there's the premise of this week's MLB Minute, and each of you gets 1 minute. And Steve, we'll start with you. 1 minute begins now.
You would think that Major League Baseball would want to use Zoom technology to actually figure out how baseball fans can, in 16 markets now, can actually watch the games on TV. Since it's at this point, as of this recording, still can't do that. But of course, it's Major League Baseball. Then you factor in the umpires. Exactly why does the umpires need to watch where they made a mistake? Why don't we bring back the Bill Veeck, grandstand manager thing and have them hold up, ball strike, safe out, fair foul. Have them figure it out that way rather than sending it back to New York. Why don't we feed it into Joe West's home so he can continue his attacks and biases against certain teams and certain players, even in retirement, because we're going to have Joe West decide whether a call was right or wrong. The only good part about this is it gives the union representation for the umpires union a little bit more time to come up with arguments as to why their umpires shouldn't be fired, Angel Hernandez, for continually making bad calls.
That might have been, that was one of my favorite MLB minutes, and we're only a third of the way through. All right, Karen, your 1 minute begins now.
Yeah, how the heck do I follow that up? I mean, I don't have any particularly strong feelings about this one way or the other. Myself, I just want them to get the calls right. And if Zoom is a good way to do that, the best way to do that, then I'm all for it. Whatever it is that will give them an accurate picture of what happened, and if a call needs to be overturned, then overturn it. And while we're at it, do something about the darn balls and strikes. Poor Yusei Kikuchi last Friday was getting squeezed with a capital S, and I really get angry when games are decided or even in parts by bad calls, whether it's balls and strikes, whether it's safe outs, whatever they need to do to get the calls right. Baseball is a game between people on one team versus people on another team, but people doing the officiating should not be influencing the results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, freshly squeezed Kikuchi is not. It doesn't go. It just doesn't. Doesn't taste right. Anyway, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Anyway, all right. My MLB minute. 1 minute begins now. All right. Actually, I think it's kind of a good idea. I think it seems like a natural progression when you look at over the last, maybe 10 years, that them trying to get calls right and so on. And what bothers me is, why does it take so long? Why are we just now in 2023 figuring out how to add video to the whole instant replay thing? What I would like to see is, rather than having, for example, the Sportsnet angles and all of that, I would like to see what is it that MLB is looking at that would be different or the same from what the fans are seeing when it's being replayed on the Jumbotron or whatever. The players turn around to look at the big screen, so they're watching it for the first time too. It would be interesting to see what camera angles are they using. If it's just the Sportsnet feed, then I don't know that you really need a Zoom to get this right. It shouldn't be this difficult. And I think that's where my head is. It shouldn't be this difficult to get to this point that we're at right now. But it's Major League Baseball, and so things are often more difficult than they need to be.
Right. And the only thing this Zoom is doing is giving the umpires the chance to watch along with Major League offices about how they screwed the call up or how they got the call right. I mean, they already saw the play. They don't need to watch it on replay. You make your call, you didn't. It's like Karen said, you then have the independent arbiter up in MLB offices either make the call saying, yes, it's right, no, it's not. I mean, this is just flat out stupid with a capital stew.
Capital stew. There you go. It's Rob Manfred's assistant. Stu, what are we going to do today?
Yes.
Let's try Zoom, Rob. Let's try Zoom. Have you ever heard of that? No, what's that?
Well, don't stew about
it. Boom. All right. We're going to get to our 2023 projections, and I'd like to start with somebody who I believe might just be one of, if not the most underrated player on this entire roster, and that is the starting pitcher who is arguably the ace of the staff, maybe, depending on your point of view. But Kevin Gausman is, let's just start there, because I don't think that on this roster, with this much star power and Alek Manoah just kind of kicking down the door of Major League Baseball over his kind of initial 18 months of being in the league, I think Kevin Gausman was kind of maybe, taking a back seat, if you will. So let's start there with Steve. Let's answer this very simply. Do we appreciate Kevin Gausman as much as we should?
I don't think that we do, because he's not. Everybody focuses on, the split finger and all, or whatever pitch you want to call it, spitter, whatever he's throwing now. Everybody's focused just on that one pitch, but really he has made himself a complete pitcher. So if you want to compare it, going back to the old days of the Blue Jays, Alek Manoah is Dave Stieb, but Kevin Gausman is Jimmy Key. He is that pitcher that, you keep saying, oh, I wish he threw harder. I wish he did this, wish he did that. But at the end of the game, you've got a really nice line 9 times out of 10 when he hits the mound. So I think he is greatly underrated. And, well, we'll blame analytics for that too, because he's not a flashy analytics guy.
Right. Karen, what are your thoughts on Kevin Gausman, and do we actually appreciate him as much as we should?
I think he tends to get a little bit overlooked, and possibly part of that is, as we're saying here, the emergence of Alek Manoah, that he's larger than life, both in terms of his pitching results and his personality. That he's just so out there, and Kevin Gausman, by comparison, I think he can get a little bit lost in the shuffle. But yeah, I mean, his results speak for themselves. It's a great problem to have 2 legitimate starting pitchers who could be the ace of this staff. I mean, we've got 1A and 1B there, so great pickup. Way to go.
Yeah, and when you look at that that $110 million contract over 5 years, it he put up 5.7 FWAR last season. Like, that's not a small season. You know what I mean? Like, he's bringing it, and he's earning that contract, and yet we don't talk about him enough. One thing that I think I'm kind of more and more impressed by is his ability, how outspoken he is. I'm actually enjoying it. I find it refreshing that he's not afraid to, talk about the fact that, like, defense behind him letting him down, or stepping into kind of a leadership role. And I read an interesting article of, I think it was Sportsnet, that Eric Swanson credited Kevin Gausman for saving his career. He, without even knowing it, Swanson practiced the splitter, and now that they're on the same team, they're talking about how they grip it and all of that stuff. And so he's kind of moving into that veteran leadership role, which I find very interesting, considering when he first came up with Baltimore, the first kind of 3 seasons of his career. I mean, wow, we're talking about a completely different pitcher now, and obviously it's great that he's on this team. One thing I'd like to talk about. Let's look at his ability to strike out, collect the strikeouts, but also limit the walks. And I think, Steve, that's the one thing for me, like as a starting pitcher, if you can limit the walks, strike out your guys, what is he, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And let's be real, limit the home runs. He was under 1 last season, 0.77 per 9 innings. Like, Steve, we're talking about a guy who is able to limit the damage, right? And that has to, Steve, make it incredibly difficult for opponents. Every 5th night, you are not going to score a lot of runs against the Toronto Blue Jays.
Exactly. And I think the great thing about Kevin Gausman is that a lot of people always sit back and say, well, they should just sit on the splitter. They shouldn't go chase the splitter. They shouldn't go, they should just sit back and make him, walk people or get high pitch counts and not chase it. The problem is at his release point and the way that his splitter breaks, hitters can't. I mean, you have such a split second to react. You literally can't. I mean, his splitter moves in ways. I mean, again, going back to the old, I'm going back to the original, like Bruce Sutter and guys that were throwing that splitter early on, where the action was just incredible. So I think that's what makes Gausman even more dangerous. He's not going to play into the other team's strategies. If they want to sit there and sit on the splitter, he has command of at least 2 other pitches that's fine. Okay, you can wet in the splitter, but I'm going to strike you out, on the inside corner, with a tailing fastball or whatever it is. So that's what makes his transformation that much more amazing, because he does not give in to hitters, and he does not give in to whatever plate approach is being preached by the opponent's managers and coaching staff. He's like, this is how I'm pitching. This is what I got. Hit it if you want. And that's why he emphasizes, as you pointed out, so much how his defense reacts behind him, because he is definitely sometimes saying, come on, hit it. I dare you to hit it.
Yeah. Right. And you know what? That confidence in Karen, I think that's his is, I don't want to call it a quiet confidence, because I don't know that he's all that quiet. He's certainly not a Ross Stripling or somebody else who's quiet. But let me ask you this, Karen. When you look at a starting rotation and you've got Alek Manoah, you've got Kevin Gausman, you've got Jose Barrios, and so on and so on. My question would be, Karen, do you put Alek Manoah and Kevin Gausman 1-2, or do you kind of maybe put someone in between them, like a Chris Bassett, who has like 800 pitches that he can throw at any given point, just to kind of, I don't know, I guess make each Manoah and Gausman just kind of that much more effective?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, I was sort of thinking along those lines. And then, of course, you've got the left-hander, Yusei Kikuchi, who's completely different. So, I mean, myself, this season has got to be about team. It really shouldn't be, although what I think will happen is that they'll go 1-2. I think Manoah gets opening day and Gausman will be next. And that's like that. That's how they are in the rotation right now in the spring. But I think the better idea might be to do what you're saying and like as much as they can, mix it up a bit. If they start with Manoah, maybe even go Kikuchi and then Gausman and then Bassett. And Just wait a year or whatever until they have Ricky Tiedemann full time, and then you got 2 lefties.
Right.
But that's them. That's not right now. So
Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, conversely, you almost want to put Bassett in the 3 hole, because let's say you're not always going 1, 2, 3 in the series. In the opening series, it's 1, 2, and 3. But in essence, you would have Gausman, who does strike out batters, does throw relatively hard. Then you bring in Bassett with the multitude of things. That now makes Jose Barrios that much more dangerous to a degree, because, again, he's going to be more of a straight ahead kind of a pitcher. And it's almost like having a knuckleballer when you have Bassett, because he has so many pitches. And then you go back to Kikuchi again, who, again, when he's right, also has an interesting assortment, of repertoire to throw out there. And then that would then lead into Manoah, who's just throwing gas, and things like that. So I really think that you could break it up more by having Bassett in the 3 hole and just put Barrios number 4, or like Karen said, it's team first. Jose Barrios is going to have to earn any consideration above, the 4 hole in the rotation at this point, So,
yeah, and his spring hasn't, combining with the WBC, hasn't exactly given us reason to think otherwise. But let's stick with Manoah, Kevin Gausman here. See, like, just kind of proving my point. But anyway, bless you. Let's stick with him for a minute, and let's look at our over and under. And I'm actually going to give us 2 here to go with. I want to look at back of the baseball card numbers, and we're going to go with wins. First of all, pitcher wins, which I have a strong aversion to. However, there's a reason we're going with wins, and I'll mention that in a second. And we're also going to go with ERA. So wins. Projected at 13 right across the board. So that'll be where our over and under is set for wins. And then ERA his projections go anywhere from 3.41 to, 3.72. So let's call it 3.5. So there you go. Our over and under for wins at 13 and ERA at 3.5. Steve, do you take the over or under on both, either, or neither?
I'm going to take the over in wins. I don't think he'll flirt with 20, but I can see him at 15, 16 wins, especially if the lineup continues to score, put up runs at the rate that they're doing. Mm-hmm. The ERA, I'm going to go over, but I'm not upset about it. I mean, I really don't have a problem with a pitcher like Kevin Gausman having an ERA 3.7, even 3.8. Because I think when it comes down to clutch time, when you really have to get the out, Kevin Gausman is going to do that. Mm-hmm. And perhaps either he's let down or he's squeezed, by a team in any particular game where he's having to throw more pitchers because they are laying off the splitter. So perhaps he does, give up some runs, here and there. So I'm going to go over on the ERA, but I am not upset about it. I mean, I think if his ERA is 3.7, 3.8, I'm fine.
Yeah, not a bad over.
Right.
All right, Karen, same question. Over or under on wins at 13 and ERA at 3.5.
Right. Yeah, I feel like Gausman's going to have a really good season in 2023, and we've talked in the past about the shift and the rules that are limiting the shift and how potentially it could help certain hitters. I think it's going to help Kevin Gausman a lot, because a big part of the problem, and I even noticed it, when he was pitching last year, is they would shift and it kept backfiring because the hitters would hit the ball, and if it had been a traditional defensive alignment, it would have been an easy out. But because they got this stupid shift going on, and they think they know better because of this and this, then he's giving up hits when really he shouldn't have been. So I'm with Steve on the wins. I can see him. Like hopefully a combination of his strengths and what I'm hoping will be a very good Blue Jays team overall, scoring runs, the offense, the defense, the bullpen not blowing any saves behind him. And yeah, I could see 15 wins, and I'm going to go slightly under with the ERA. I think he's really going to limit runs. And yeah, we're going to have a good season from him.
Right, and everything you guys have all said, I think the ERA, because defense does play into it. I think that's going to impact that. And as you said previously, hits, maybe those aren't hits in this coming season, right? So I'm going to go with the over in wins because this team is just too good and Kevin Gausman is too good. And I'm going to go with the under. And the reason I'm going for that is because I think he challenges for the Cy Young Award this year. That's my gut tells me that this is going to be a good year from Gausman, simply because this team is just so good and he's primed, if you will. So there you go. I'm going to take the over and then the under, and I'm going to remind everybody that you can download the BetStamp app on Apple or Google Play using the code JFTC. And when you download that app, you can see all the books, line shop, find the best place to put your money down. You can track winning bettors, see what they're doing, see what works for them, and follow suit. And maybe you can kind of increase or enlarge your wallet. So download the BetStamp app today, use the code JFTC, and start betting like a pro. Yep. All right, we're going to fly along right here, and Dulcimeris is asking if he missed the Kevin Kiermaier segment, and no, sir, you did not. In fact, we're going to do Kevin Kiermaier right now, simply because the other two in the show, I think, are kind of interconnected, if you will. But, Stephen, I'm going to start with you very simply. The addition of Kevin Kiermaier, what does that mean for the fortunes of this Blue Jays team?
Well, defensively, you really can't put a value on it, honestly, as long as he can keep himself healthy. What he's going to do, how he's going to transform that outfield defense is you just can't quantify it. I like the idea of Kiermaier hitting in the 9-hole. I think that is terrific to have someone that has good bat control, has pretty decent plate discipline, has speed, can take extra bases. He can score. He can score from first on a double into the gap. He's a great base runner. So I think Kevin Kiermaier is going to affect wins for the Blue Jays in ways that aren't going to show up on the stat sheet.
Right. Karen, what are your thoughts? Kevin Kiermaier, when that deal was announced, the $9 million deal, what is it that went through your head? Were you happy about it? Were you questioning it? Or just like really pissed off and like throwing things?
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction was I wasn't really all that impressed. I mean, I looked at his stats, his hitting, not that he's ever been a great major league hitter, and he himself admits that, and he makes jokes about himself in that regard. But yeah, I mean, his hitting stats seem to be on the decline. I know how good his defense used to be, and I remember watching him last year, like not get to a ball that Kevin Kiermaier would have gotten 2 years ago, and it went for a hit, and watching him seemed very futile, and I thought, wow, like what's happened to him? And in hindsight, I'm thinking about the timing of that game that I watched, and I think it was in between because he was on the IL, came back for a couple of weeks, and then had to shut it down for the rest of the season. And I'm pretty sure it was in between those two time periods. So him shutting it down that fast says to me that he really wasn't healthy. So that wasn't necessarily a fair judge. But I mean, initially I thought, okay, they've signed him to be the fourth outfielder, as a lot of people believed. that he would basically be, his defense is as good as Bradley Zimmer and his hitting is as good as Ramal Tapia, and he takes up one roster spot instead of two. And I thought, okay, well, that'll work. Now get us somebody to start every day. And then he had his introductory press conference and said, the Blue Jays have told me that I'm their everyday center fielder. And I thought, what? But I'll be honest, having watched him this spring training, I am so pleasantly surprised, like to the point where I'm almost in shock. And yeah, I mean, he has just been so much better than I ever expected on both sides of the ball. His defense is very much there. His offense, although lately his bat has cooled off a little bit, but maybe he's just waiting for the season to start. But I mean, I am hopeful. We're not talking a league MVP here, but I'm hopeful that he can be like a 110 weighted runs created plus. You get that in the ninth hole from the left hand side of the plate, and he's making a contribution.
Right. I just get, every time I try and watch Kevin Kiermaier, I get lost in his eyes and I'm done. I just turned like, I'm a puddle on the couch. I just like, oh man. But in all seriousness, Steve, the reason I said that is because I don't have to say anything anymore. I keep saying this every week, but Dulcimeris has clearly done some homework, watching on YouTube, chiming in here. Kiermaier's career stats at the Rogers Center are 287, 343, 490, 833, and a 132 OPS plus with the slightly higher OPS plus at Yankee Stadium and Fenway. Hello.
Thank you, Dulcimeris.
Last year, his average and OPS were 0.44 and 123 points higher on the road away from the Trop. The shift is gone, and he will no longer have 3 175 or worse hitters behind him in the lineup, which is a fair point. But it's okay. But Dulcimeris, would it make you feel better if they were cheap 175 hitters? And Dulcimeris believes that Kevin Kiermaier is a dark horse to go 2020 if he puts in a full season as an everyday player. An injury will derail this, of course. And it should be interesting to note that Kevin Kiermaier's career high in home runs is 15. He hit 14 in 2019, but 15 is his limit. And stolen bases, his career high is 21. So he might be in tough to be a 2020 guy. But I love the optimism, and for me personally, the what I'm really enjoying, all jokes aside from his gorgeous eyes, what I'm really enjoying is just listening to him talk. The way he's kind of like even like taking over the outfield, which could be very difficult to do when you've got a guy like George Springer that you're actually like. You're responsible for him moving positions, and you've got Dalton Varsho and you're coming in there and you, as a center fielder, it's your job to take over and to run the show out there. And he's doing just that. And he's getting along really well. He's saying all the right things. He's playing hard and he's playing with a bit of confidence saying, you know what, I'm going to be the league's best number 9 hitter. Excellent. You go, Kevin Kiermaier. So let's talk about this question right here. We're going to go with league average bat because we know he's going to play defense. We know he's going to be solid in the outfield and all of that. And we know he's gorgeous. So let's look at that league average bat. Let's look at weighted runs created plus. I know, Steve, you're cringing already. There's not a thing I can say anymore that that you'll participate in. So, but I do want to look at league average bat because I think that's kind of where, the real, what is he going to produce, right? So a league average weighted runs created plus is 100. His career mark is 97. So let's set it at 100. Will Kevin Kiermaier be over or under weighted runs created plus of 100? And Steve, if you don't want to use the actual metric weighted runs created plus, you can just say he will be better or worse than league average.
Well, the problem with weighted runs created plus is that it changes, I think, weekly what it actually tells you and actually defines. That is not a stat that you measure up to tell whether a player is a league average. I'm sorry, it flat out is not. Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand it's designed to say, well, all things considered and ballpark factors and all the. I understand all that. You cannot use that as a metric to say whether a hitter is going to be league average or not. So I would say don't even make a bet on that one. Find some other bet to make because honestly, I mean it's pointless, especially with a hitter like Kevin Kiermaier, who is a great situational hitter. He is I guess more gorgeous than Randy Rosarino. But I mean,
yes,
when the light shines the brightest, that is when Kevin Kiermaier comes through. So I don't really care what any other metric is going to say. He comes through in situations. He's going to be effective. He's going to contribute to wins and to the offense, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
Right. So Steve's response can be summed up by the Austin Powers line, "I'll stay." That's it. No bets placed. Fair enough. Karen, please play the game. What over or under 100 weighted runs created plus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't violently object to WRC plus. I appreciate what they're trying to do with it. So yeah, I mean, again, based on what I've seen, and this might be a little bit of an optimistic estimate, but I'm going to say that he beats it by a little bit. I'm going to say that he has a good year, both ways, both offensively and defensively.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm actually going to take the under on 100. If it's under, I don't think it'll be by much, but I also don't care. I'm okay if he's not a league average bat. If he doesn't put up 100 weighted runs created plus, that's fine with me because, as Steve said, he's going to do a whole bunch of other things really well. He's going to steal some catcher's pitch comm. And,
just going to say, as long as he doesn't do that.
He's going to do the little things to help you win, right? So, I'm with you, Steve. So I'm going to take the under, but I don't care. And then I don't think that's a bad thing. Just like Kevin Gausman, Steve said Kevin Gausman's ERA will be over, and it's not a bad thing. I think Kevin Kiermaier's weighted runs created plus will be under, but I don't think that's a bad thing either. You know what's a good thing, though? The BetStamp app. Go to the App Store and Google Play, and you can download the BetStamp app using the code JFTC. You can track all your bets across all the books. You can look for the best bet to place. And you can follow winning bettors. It really is the greatest tool that you can find to take your betting game to another level. So head to the App Store or Google Play, use the code JFTC, and start betting like a pro. Go ahead, Karen.
I'm just reminded of it. It was early in spring training, and they were having their first batting practice groups. And I think it was Hazel May that reported that because they put Kiermaier in a group with Guerrero, Bichette, and Springer. And he says, first day, and they put me in a group with the three of them. Are you kidding me?
And I actually liked that. I like that they did that. Get him in there with the core guys right away and start establishing that relationship right away. I love it.
Right. And Steve. Those guys can then watch how he approaches at bats. You can't, you can learn it. I don't know that you can teach it. I think you actually have to see it in play with a teammate for you to get confidence in that. And then one other thing, you do know that there's an actual metric stat called runs created. You know that there's an actual stat that actually values how runs are scored and created. You understand that. You don't need to weight it. You don't need to do anything. There's a runs created stat.
Well, listen, it's been a long winter. Everything with me is weighted. So
yeah, okay. I mean, I don't know. Is Fangraphs going to start sponsoring the show too, so we can feed all of those stupid stats they come up with? Okay, when they start paying us, fine. Okay, when Fangraphs starts paying us to shill all of their nonsense, then fine. Okay, then I'll play along with this game. But until that happens, I mean, I'm sorry. Okay, can you buy me? Yes, you can, but you cannot fool me. So.
I mean,
Excellent.
I can appreciate a run scored at Coors Field is not the same as a run scored wherever, Kauffman Stadium or wherever it is.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that part of it.
Yeah. We'll have to have an episode where we just look at statistics and metrics and how to follow the baseball season. That's what we'll call it. How to survive the baseball season.
It's called a box
Steve
score.
Killing you. A box score. Yep.
It's been around for 160 years, the box score, and it's done just fine. Okay, we don't need to do anything else. We have a box score, and we have wins, losses, games back. Those are great stats. That's all you need to know. Everything else, screw it.
All right. And this, I don't know where to go with that, so I'm just going to go on to our next projection. We're going to look at Whit Merrifield, who I think...
Wits about us.
Yes, keep our wits about us. Thank you, Karen. See, Karen's good at this witty stuff. We're going to get witty with it. So, Kevin, I'm still stuck on the Kevins. That was a bad idea, putting those two together in the same episode. Anyway, Whit Merrifield is an interesting cat in the sense that he comes with the track record of the ability to lead the league in stolen bases. And he's now coming into, he had a bit of a rough start and, you know, all of that stuff in his time in Toronto, whatever. It's a new season now. So, Steve, right off the bat, do you expect that Whit Merrifield is going to, well, okay, you know what? I'm just going to say it, hit the ground running with all of these new kind of the rule changes in that surround all of the rule changes that kind of surround that base stealing element of his game? Do you think do we see another 40 stolen base season?
Oh, I think depending on his bats, I think you definitely do because, okay, Whit Merrifield does have speed, but he does not steal bases on his speed. He steals bases off of pitchers and catchers. You know, I mean, he is a seasoned major league player who has learned. I mean, over the course of the years, his caught stealings have kind of fluctuated a little bit, but for the most part, he has most of that under control. He is stealing bases off of pitchers and stealing bases in situations. He is going to be in a lot of really positive situations to allow him to steal. And I would imagine that Schneider and Mattingly are going to allow a lot of players to have a green light until they prove they don't deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be like another guy who can come in and kind of teach what he does. And you know, as you said, you kind of learn by example, right? Watching him go about how he does what he's good at. And I think that can rub off on guys like Bo Bichette, who is impressing the you-know-what out of me this spring with his professional kind of approach and focus and all of that stuff. So I think that can benefit the rest of the team as well. Karen, let's look at, aside from the stolen bases, though, he provides a versatility that, and him among others, and we'll talk about Biggio here in a second, but I think he provides a versatility that that the Blue Jays can really benefit from, his ability to play second base and to play the outfield and all of that stuff. But Karen, I guess the question is he the starting second baseman, or is he fourth outfielder, or is he some kind of like multi-headed monster this season?
I keep saying the Jays' second baseman is a three-headed monster, SB Bigfield. And I like all three of those guys for what each of them brings to the table. I mean, the Jays traded for Whit Merrifield. I didn't know all that much about him. And for the first however many weeks of his Blue Jays tenure, he was awful. And then I don't know what happened, whether it was when they went to the Trop, but somebody flicked a light switch and he went from the Jays' worst player and became their best player. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, who's this guy? What did they do with the original? So yeah, what is he? I mean, I think they'll move them around. I'm not saying that he's going to play 140 games at second base. He's going to spend some time at second base. He'll spend some time probably in the outfield. And yeah, I mean they'll utilize him. They didn't trade for him to have him sit on the bench. If he's performing at all, which seems like he can with consistent playing time, then they'll let him play.
Yeah, yeah. I almost feel like, and I have nothing to base this on, but I almost feel like the acquisition of Whit Merrifield wasn't about last year at all. I think it was more about this year, and in a sense that, like, I feel like the rule changes were coming. Maybe there was some kind of, I don't want to say inside information or anything like that, but a good front office is looking forward and reading tea leaves and so on, or hot chocolate leaves or whatever they're reading. So I can't help but feel like there was an eye to this coming season when they acquired him. One thing that I noted is he made a comment, and I can't recall when or where, but he made a comment, get me out of Kauffman Stadium and you'll see how many home runs I hit. So we know he'll be versatile. We know he can steal bases. So Steve, let's go right there with our over and under, and let's really put Whit Merrifield on the spot here. Says he can get him out of Kansas City and he'll hit home runs. His career high is 19 home runs set in 2017, and then he has 12, 16, and then the next double digits are 10 and then 11 last season. Projections have him at between 8 and 12 home runs. So let's go right there. Let's set the over and under at home runs for Whit Merrifield at 10, Steve. Does he hit more or does he hit fewer?
I'm going to go under only because I'm not sure exactly how many at bats he's going to get. But I mean, but if it was me, I'm going to the major league, Lou Brown approach. And I go to Whit Merrifield and say, every time I see you hit the ball in the air, you owe me 20 push-ups. And that's what I would do. I mean, basically, I would want to see Whit drop down, do his 20 push-ups, and then advance to first base every time he hits the ball in the air. Does he have power? I think he has some. I think his bat has slowed a little bit. He's played a lot of games in his career. So it's not like he was just a guy only getting 250, 300 at bats. His time in KC, he was playing virtually almost every day. So, so for me, in fact, I want to say at one point he actually had the consecutive game streak. He had the longest one going back, I want to say, into 2021. I could be wrong on that, but I think that he did. So that's where I don't want to see him hitting for power. He has the kind of plate discipline as far as hunting pitches, where he'll get his home runs because he'll hunt the pitch, and once he gets it, he can still turn on that particular pitch. But I'm going to go under only because I don't know that he'll have enough at bats to go and flirt with a career high.
Right. And just to kind of support, I have the numbers right in front of me. Cal Ripken, in what can only be described as something Cal Ripken would say, oh, that's cute, too. 2019, 162 games. 2020, all 60 games. And 2021, all 162 games. And 2018, he actually had 158. So, I mean,
slacker,
right. Cal Ripken's like, come on, man. Do you even baseball, bro? Anyway, all right, Karen. Whit Merrifield, home runs over or under 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna say over by a little bit. I don't think at bats and playing time is going to be an issue. I said they're going to find playing time for all of these guys. So I don't know that I'd go 20-20, but I'd maybe 15-15, or I mean, with the new rules, possibly more stolen bases than that. But yeah, I could say minimum 15-15. I could see.
Yeah. No, I just need everybody to understand that if Whit Merrifield does not steal 25, 30 bases, he is entering Brandon Drury territory for me. I'm just letting everybody know right now. he's got one job on my team. He's got one job, and that's to steal bases, and he better have 25-30 by the end of the season, or else.
His job is to make catchers break rules and steal a run that way.
Yeah, well, maybe, but still, he's been put on notice. Oh, and as far as the over and under, I actually think he'll hit more than 10 home runs. I really do. I think again, not just the number of games, but like consistent playing time, because I think that's one thing that you absolutely need to get into a groove to be able to hit home runs. You have to be feeling comfortable at the plate and all of that stuff. So hopefully not just the number of games, but the way the games come to him. I think hopefully they can allow for some consistency there. And Mark Ryan has a prediction that Whit starts at second base, sometimes left field, and I think that's bang on. Thanks, Mark, for that comment watching on YouTube. Appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, I agree. I think that's what you're looking at. As well, I would like you all to go to the App Store or Google Play and look at the BetStamp app. It's a great tool that you can use to take your betting game to another level. You can line shop, look for the best deals for your money. You can track winning bettors, see what they do. You can keep track of all your bets. It's a really great tool. I highly recommend it. Head to App Store, Google Play, download the BetStamp app using the code JFTC and start betting like a pro. All right, we got one more here, and that is the guy who I really believe, and you know what? I'm just going to start actually right there. I'm going to start with my beliefs, and I need you both to validate them for me. But Steve, in all seriousness, Cavan Biggio, up to this point in his career, potentially even this coming season, has the team mismanaged Cavan Biggio? Because I really believe the whole third base experiment and then the inconsistent playing time, getting him in at first base and all of this stuff has been really disruptive to his development as a Major League Baseball player. So Steve, am I off? Am I wrong? Or am I 100% bang on correct?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say that the front office mismanaged the entire roster, and that people like Vladdy and Bo are just too good to have it affect them. But having said that, for I don't know how many talk about consecutive week streaks. I mean, how many weeks in a row have I bashed Ross Atkins? I think, when did I start here, in June of 2020? I don't think
we might be going on 3 years.
Yeah. Other than weeks that I haven't been on the show, I don't think I've missed bashing Ross. And I probably did so in the comments, but you wouldn't put them up if I was watching from home. But
you've got your own Iron Man streak going there. So
there you go. Yes. But no, absolutely. And I was someone that really thought that Cavan Biggio could handle third base, because I thought that his baseball acumen, his ability to read the ball off the bat, would make up, as far as what his positioning would make up for what would be happening with lack of arm strength. But I mean, it's baseball criminal what they've done to Cavan Biggio and how they've underutilized. And quite honestly, they've had to underutilize him because they did not have the depth on the bench, and they did not have the depth and length in the lineup. They had to use him to fill holes, most often to his detriment. And again, because he's a team player, because he is a true professional. He never said anything, and he just went out there. He played hurt. He played whatever position they put him in, because they had to have somebody there. So from that standpoint, he's his own worst enemy, in that he is such a professional and he is so versatile. He played right into the front office's strategic plans about, well, we have Cavan Biggio, so it's okay. We don't need to get this guy. Oh, yeah, we have Cavan Biggio, so he can be our left-handed guy off the bench. Yeah, and it was always, we have Cavan Biggio, to wrap ankles, before the game. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what they've done with Cavan Biggio, is saying whatever it needs to be needed, Cavan Biggio is going to take care of it. And I'm surprised he didn't catch at some point. Yeah, I mean, right. Honest to God, I mean, that's just how that they used it. So it is a shame, and hopefully he gets freed. Let my Biggio go.
I think he actually is or was the emergency catcher.
Yeah,
remember that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like he was the emergency everything. And Karen, I think that's that's what's been rubbing me the wrong way ever since 2020 for the last 3 years, I think has been the real anyway, yeah, pebble in my shoe. But Karen, based on that, how are they going to manage him this season? How do you see his usage? Because he's got second base, first base, but Brandon Belt is now there, so that's not really an option. So second base with Whit Merrifield and Santiago Espinal, or the outfield somewhere. How are they going to get him enough plate appearances that he's going to be able to, I guess, use that potential that he does have?
Right. Yeah, like I said, I feel like there is playing time, that there's enough playing time for all of them. Like I was following along the game on Sunday, and there was no TV, so I had to use the MLB at Bat Game Day app. And at one point they had three Blue Jay second basemen on base. They had Whit Merrifield on third, and I think Biggio was on second, and Espinal was on first. And I know it's spring training, and you're not likely to have Espinal DHing very much of the time because that's what he was doing. But I think there are opportunities to get all of them ample playing time. I mean, do we believe that George Springer and Kevin Kiermaier are going to play 160 games each? Because if we don't believe that, somebody's got to play out there. So that can be Cavan Biggio some of the time. He can play second base some of the time. I mean, he can play first. I don't know who's the better first baseman, whether that's him or Brandon Belts, but I think there is playing time there for him.
Right. And I mean, that's, I think this just all speaks to the positional versatility that this Blue Jays team has. They have legitimately 3 starting center fielders, which is just insane to me. They have 3 legitimate starting second basemen. It's insane to me. But recently, we're going to head to his over and under here in a second, but recently he had a comment that he went to John Schneider over the offseason and was like, I want to play more, basically was the conversation. And John Schneider was like, yep, I know we didn't get you in very much. That's my fault. We're trying to win games, blah, 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 which is like kind of insulting. Like we're trying to win games. That's why you didn't play. Ouch. But apparently they came to an agreement, and the long and the short of it is that Cavan Biggio, apparently, if George Springer is not playing in right field, Cavan Biggio will be next in line to play right field. So that's where we're going with our over and under. And Steve, I'm going to ask you, and I know that some of this has to do with the health of George Springer, which is questionable at best. So I get that. But last season in right field, he appeared in 7 games, 6 starts. So let's just say, games. We'll just say games. How many games does Cavan Biggio play in right field, Steve? Last year it was 7. I'm going to set it the over and under because it's again based on Springer's health. I'm going to set it at 20 games. Does he play more or less time in right field?
In Toronto, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if we're assuming that he's going to continue to be misused in Toronto, I'll give him 20 games in right field.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's going to be times where Kiermaier is going to have to sit a couple of games or whatever, especially playing on the turf, whether it be at Rogers or whether it be in Tampa. So I would think that Springer would move to center to let Biggio play right. I think in certain situations, in certain matchups as well. I feel a lot more comfortable with John Schneider and Don Mattingly doing matchup lineups than what Mr. Montoyo did.
Right.
rather than try to hit, on the third up on his bongo to decide who was going to play that day. I mean, they actually use baseball acumen to set up lineups now with the current dugout staff. So I'm going to give him 20. If he's in Toronto, I'm going to give him 20, though I honestly think he's going to be playing second base somewhere else.
Right. And he very well could be. But for now, Karen, over and under 20 games in right field for Mr. Biggio.
When you were talking out your scenario there, I actually had 20 games in my head. So, I mean, you can almost say that you've got it right on there, but maybe a little bit more, like maybe 21, 22, and he starts a little bit at second base, and Whit Merrifield might end up playing a few games in left field, which leaves second base open. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different scenarios. He could be a backup first baseman. I don't know that they'll take Vlad off first base all that much, but there's places for him. So
yeah. Right. And I'm going to take the over in right field. And simply, actually, I'm going to take just a different angle. I really believe that John Schneider wouldn't come out and publicly say that if he wasn't going to live up to it. And that's I think the one thing that I'm taking away. His personality doesn't seem to be a smoke blower. So, I'm going to go with the over. And again, everything that you all have said as well leads me to believe that he'll play more in right field as well. So download the BetStamp app today. You can find it on Apple on the App Store. Google Play. Use the code JFTC. You can line shop, look for the best place to place your money. Follow winning bettors, track all your bets. It's just a great tool. So download the BetStamp app today. Use the code JFTC and start betting like a pro. All right, it is my favorite time. I love this time. I love that we end our episodes every week with our fake news segments, and I can't wait for this one. So, Steve, we're gonna start with you, but before we do, just to remind everybody that it is entirely fake. It's all made up. It's just for fun, for entertainment, for all of the laughs and the giggles. That's all it's for. It's not real. So chill out. All right. On that note, Jays from the Couch proudly presents fake Blue Jays news. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Sean. Now, Karen usually handles transaction news and analysis on her show, Sunny Side of the Dome. She does an amazing job with that segment, by the way. If you have not caught that segment on Sunny Side of the Dome, make sure that you tune into that. But there were a few notable transactions over the weekend that I thought that Jay fans needed to give their immediate attention to. So the first one is actually related to Team Canada and their performance in the WBC. Toronto General Manager Ross Atkins announced via his MySpace page that the team was on the verge of signing former J. Adam Lowen to a minor league contract with an invitation to spring training. Adam made all Canadians proud with his relief appearances during the World Baseball Classic. I am confident he will give us the type of Shohei Ohtani dual threat weapon at a much more affordable price tag. Now, when this reporter pointed out that Lowen has been retired since 2016 and has been such a weak hitter, he switched back to pitching after converting to the outfield. Atkins seemed kind of defensive. You obviously have not watched video of his performances. I have no doubt he will hit as well as Brandon Belt, and I'd favorably compare his pitching abilities to what we've all seen from Jose Barrios during the World Baseball Classic. Now, speaking of Brandon Belt, team president Mark Shapiro told reporters before this afternoon's exhibition game that the team had petitioned the commissioner's office to allow them to hit the pitcher in Belt's spot as the DH in the lineup. Brendan will be required to pinch hit when called upon and take his position on the field if called upon, but we think the best way to maximize his talents and keep him healthy is to have pitchers bat for Brandon when he's in the lineup at DH. Now, MLBPA Executive Director Tony Clark has said he will support the Jays' request with the commissioner's office. The Players Association supports the request to have pitchers hit for Brandon Belt. This will keep Brandon in the dugout and in the money throughout the 2023 season. After all, the Blue Jays signed him to a $9.3 million contract when no one else would. I'd personally give Mark or Ross one of my kidneys if they needed one as thanks for rewarding a veterans player's performance from 3 years ago. But the strangest transaction has not been officially announced. But in the aftermath of the Jose Altuve fractured thumb occurring in the World Baseball Classic, the Houston Astros posted a rather cryptic tweet showing an opening day lineup posted on the Minute Maid Park scoreboard, showing that the Blue Jays' Cavan Biggio was leading off and playing second base for the team on opening day. Ross Atkins could not be reached for comment, citing the ongoing negotiations with Adam Lowen's representatives as the reason. Over to you, Sean.
Can't talk that signing the next Shohei Ohtani. Love it. As mentioned earlier, Major League Baseball and Zoom are partnering to improve the replay experience. Obviously, this is an added layer of getting calls right while providing a more modern method. However, as anyone who experienced working from home relying on Zoom during the pandemic can tell you, there are some kinks to work out. Major League Baseball is concerned that the freeze may slow down the game, as those in the New York office suddenly... and then they come back and have to repeat everything they just said. Of course, remembering to unmute will always be a continuous challenge. Now, in an effort to bring Major League Baseball further into the present, they'll begin testing the limits of this Zoom technology. Like many employers that learned people can do their jobs from home, Major League Baseball and the Umpires Union have agreed to begin allowing the New York office to call entire games. They've randomly selected one umpire to test the future of game calling. Randomly selected umpire Angel Hernandez will be blindfolded for all games and will simply repeat all the play calls as told to him in the Zoom call. Now, Jays from the Couch spoke with Rob Manfred about the potential, because, he answers my calls like that, spoke with Rob Manfred about the potential issues that this could cause. But he assures us that fans will only notice an improved product, as decisions will come from a more capable source. Manfred adds, "Trust me, this random sampling will win you over very quickly." And that has been Fake Blue Jays News.
And this is not Fake Blue Jays News. Brendan Belt is a good hitter.
Well, I think you need to work on your syntax, because he was a great hitter. Now he's just a hitter.
But he's got a nice beard, though. I mean, there's that, right?
I would rather that the Jays would have signed Garth Brooks, because I was always going around all those spring trainings to raise money. They should have had Garth. They should have signed Garth Brooks, made him the DH, be able to raise money for Blue Jays care charities, and that would have made a whole lot more sense than $9 million on Brandon Belt.
Well, and then maybe Cavan Biggio will actually get enough playing time. But anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 325 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. Another good one in the books, and I want to thank both of you for joining me. As always, you give up your time to talk Blue Jays with me, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much to both of you. Thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. You guys have great discussion going. And questions coming in fast and furious, and I love that interaction, so thank you so much. And to all of our audio listeners, thank you as well, whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you find the podcast. We really do appreciate it. We're getting great numbers, and Zoom. We're so excited for this, or on Zoom if you're watching on Zoom. But in all sincerity, thank you very much for following along with Jays from the Couch. So for Steve, for Karen, for Rob Manfred, and the creators of Zoom, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at DoyleJFTC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.